Here we have a 27-foot 6-ring stirring bin, and we're going to start by doing a little walk around on how it works. Here we have a control panel on it that runs the fan, the Stirrator, the spreader, the unload auger, and we're going to do a little walk around on what we got here and how to run a stirring bin. So here we have the fan. We have a centrifugal fan. It's a 7.5 horsepower, low speed centrifugal. We have a low temp upstream burner on it. The gas is not yet hooked up there. Now on this one here, as you can see, this is a LP, low temp. So there's no vapor coil. We hook to the vapor on the tank and hook the vapor right up there. But we still need tank pressure. All the Sukup burners need tank pressure. That is the regulator that's needed. So on that regulator, it says increase, decrease. That regulator should say do not touch, because inside the box is where you do your adjustments. Okay, so for changing the temperature on this bin, if you have the mod valve, if it has this probe in the side of the bin, that means it has a mod valve. You will look at the gauge and see what temperature you're running. So when you start this up, you're going to start the fan and you're going to start the heater. And you're going to let it run for about 10 minutes. After about 10 minutes, you're going to look at the gauge. And when you look at the gauge, is it running 120 degrees or 130 degrees? If you're running corn, I would run about 130 is going to be my recommendation. If you're running beans, I'm going to run 110 to 120 if you have a Stirrator. And then if you want to adjust the temperature, you need to go up to the top of the burner. Whoops, dropped it. Go up the top of the burner. And you're gonna see in here, in the top of the burner, you have a T-handle. And this T-handle, you're gonna thread clockwise about one turn per 10 degrees that you want to adjust the temperature. So if you want to increase the temperature 10 degrees, give this about one turn clockwise and then wait about 5 minutes and see if that brought it to the right temperature. If it didn't, adjust accordingly. Loosen it to lower the temp, thread it in to increase the temp. But always wait 5 to 10 minutes after adjusting and watch your temperature gauge down there to verify that it's running the temperature you want. So on this burner, this is a low temp burner. This has that mod valve, which is adjusted up in the top of the box, but it also has a thermostat. So this thermostat is high temp. That's like your high temp limit. So that if you're running this in the summer and you want to make sure you don't exceed like 100 degrees or 110 degrees because you're drying seed or something, then you would set your thermostat as your high limit. Now we'll go around the other side. And here we have the power sweep. So if you see here, you always want the power sweep, the end of the power sweep So the end of the power sweep needs to be just ready to go over the sump closest to the wall. That's where your end power sweep needs to be. In here, we have the Stirrators and the grain spreader up there. With a Stirrator, you always need to run a grain spreader. That way, your grain is level for the Stirrator. It makes it easier on the Stirrator. So on this Stirrator, it has these down augers. When we turn it on, it's going to start the down augers. If those augers, at the same time as them down augers are turning, that end up there is, the tube is turning, and it's working its way around the bin. If these augers, these down augers, as it's moving around the bin, if they go out the back and tilt out the back, your tube up there will stop moving around the bin. When it's moving, it moves very slow, extremely slow. So you have to stop and watch it for 10 minutes to know for certain if it's moving or not. That's how slow it's moving. So these augers spin fast, but the tube up there that moves around the bin moves extremely slow. So on this grain bin, we have a 27-foot 6-ring. We have a centrifugal fan selected. We have one fan. So we have 1.16 CFMs per bushel of airflow. Stirred corn, 120 degree drying temp. Ambient temp 50. Start moisture 25, end moisture 15. So if we hit calculate, we're going to come up with 70 bushels an hour. So it will take 122 hours to dry the bin. So it'll take 12.2 hours per point of moisture. So it'll take 12 hours to remove 1 point of moisture when drying corn in this bin. With that low temp heater, 120 degrees is going to be, we're going to be able to run 130 max with that heater. That'll be the hottest we'll be able to get that to. 120 will be about what it'll do. So our LP usage will be 8 gallon an hour. 8.4 gallon. Natural gas, 755 cubic feet per hour. If we go back here and we change this to soybeans and this to 110 degrees and this to 18% going in, and we hit calculate, now we have 46 hours to remove. 18 to 15 is, oh no, that's wrong. Let's back up. So we start with 18% moisture. We want 13%. Calculate. Now it takes 75 hours to remove 5 points of moisture. So 75 divided by 5 points of moisture would be 15 hours per point of moisture removed when running 110 degree plenum temp drying soybeans in that bin with the bin full. If it's less than full, it's going to take less time because you're going to have a higher airflow per bushel. So this is to know how long you got to run your bin or how much drying it's going to be. The best way to calculate it is off of this here. Have your dealer print out a paper like this for you. That way, you know, you can do the math on how many hours it's going to take to dry your grain, or how many hours per point of moisture removed. And then you can figure that out for your drying bin and save yourself a lot of guesswork. To unload the grain bin, you would start by turning on the unload auger. Then you would come over here and make sure the pin is out of here, and you would crank this open. That pulls the sender rod only. That only drains out of the center of the bin. You open that however far you need to get the right flow of grain for your auger or whatever you're dumping into. And when no more grain flows out of there, then you would open this rod here. You pull this rod out. This is called the emergency sump. This is right next to the sender. You can start with this one if you want. You could, if this is closed, you can start with this rod here and drain that out the whole way before starting over here. Once this one and this one are drained out the whole way, that no more grain comes, then you would take this pin, plug it in right here, and you would crank that open again with the intermediate sumps. That will drain out all the grain along the sweep itself. It would drain out all this grain along the sweep itself. Once no more grain will flow out of any of the sumps, then you would go over here, and this lower rod, you would engage this. You engage that, that starts the sweep going around the bin. When you're running the sweep, you want to make sure that your intermediate sumps are closed and your emergency sump is closed. The only sump you want open while running your sweep is the sender sump. That is the only sump you want open while your sweep is engaged. Otherwise, you can plug the auger. Okay, if you look here on the Sukup bin, there's no latches to close the door. The inside doors must be closed for there to be latches for the outside door to latch onto. So the inside doors must be closed for there to be a latch for the outside door. It's a safety feature to make sure that you don't fill your bin with the outside door closed and the inside one's open.